Hi, I'm Julie Tam, managing broker of LYN REALTY in Houston, Texas. And thank you so much for joining me for my weekly Wednesday video series, Smarter Real Estate, where I arm you with practical strategies to be a smarter buyer, seller, tenant, or landlord, and also take you on some of my real estate adventures. Well, this week we are talking about a very relevant topic. There are a lot of people out there searching for a home, whether to buy or to rent. And sometimes you have conflicts with yourself, but sometimes you're going in it with someone else, whether it be a spouse, another family member, a friend, a roommate, and you have conflicts. What do you want? What do I want? Whose needs and wants are more important? How do you sort all those things out? How do you work through those disagreements to come to a successful resolution to get that home that both of you can be happy with? Okay, I'm going to talk about that today. So pay attention. You're going to really enjoy this. All right, so first I'm going to start with if you're just going at it solo. Okay, we're going to keep things simple and then we'll dive into how do you resolve those conflicts with other people. So when you're going in it by yourself, that doesn't mean it's conflict free, because sometimes you are your worst enemy. And let me explain why. So when you're looking for a home, right? First of all, you might have a target price in mind and some basics like how many bedrooms and baths, square footage, location within the city, if you care about the school district that it's zoned to, if you have any children, and that sort of thing. And so you start going out and looking at a bunch of homes, right? But if you haven't sat down before you do that to get some clarity on exactly what you're looking for and what is going to be the home, what factors are going to make this home the home to make an offer on, whether to buy or to rent, then you are potentially setting yourself up for trouble and hurt and lost time. So what happens is a lot of times when me as a realtor, for example, I'm showing homes, that buyer or renter suddenly realizes in the middle of it all, you know what, this is actually not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. Or maybe, gosh, am I willing to compromise this? Or maybe I want to increase my budget because I'm not finding what I'm looking for within the budget that I had originally set and the price point that I had originally set. So now we got to go back to the drawing table. So this is what I advise. You want to start out with a plan before you go out to look at homes, because once you go out to look at homes, emotions set in, right? You start to fall in love with something. Then all of a sudden you're willing to spend more than you had originally budgeted for example. Or you start to get really picky about things, and things that you originally didn't see as a need or want all of a sudden become a need or want. And so now you're eliminating all these homes till you're pretty much left with nothing. There's no home that fits what you are looking for. And so you just give up, you're frustrated, and you just feel like you've wasted a lot of time. And then you have to start all over and maybe reassess what you want or need. So let's avoid all of that. First of all, before you go out, obviously you want to set a price point for yourself. What price is the absolute maximum you're willing to spend, period? And you just can't go over that, because it will break your budget and it will cause you to go into a lot of financial stress. I'm not going to go into detail about how would you set that budget in this video, but suffice it to say, if you're getting a loan for a home, for example, well, your maximum that you can spend is whatever the lender says you can spend, because they won't approve you for a loan on a home that costs more than this. If you're trying to rent a home, well, there's a limitation as well. Your landlord or property manager, the typical industry standard is that you need to make 3 times the rent. So whatever the monthly rent is, your monthly gross household income needs to be at least 3 times that much. And some rules may vary slightly, but that's a general industry standard. And so that pretty much sets your maximum, right? Now, when you get down into, I don't want to spend my maximum, I want to spend less than that. How do you figure that out? Well, that's when you got to budget, right? You've got to see, well, how much am I spending on all the other things? My car payment, my groceries, my utilities, this, that, and the other, and figure out where your housing expenses fall into there as well, and how much you want to be able to save, how much you want to be able to put in your 401k, how much you want to save for recreation and discretionary spending, and that sort of thing. So then you come up with a price that's like, well, this is not my maximum, but this is what I would like to stay at. But if I find a home that goes a little bit above that, but still below my maximum, then maybe I'll decide to go for that and go slightly above my budget for that reason, right? Okay, so the price is very important. And then talking about needs and wants. You want to create some sort of sheet of paper or something on your computer with 2 columns, needs and wants. And this gives you clarity, because once you finally find that home that you think, I'm thinking this might be it, but I'm not really sure, you can go back to your needs and wants and look at those lists and you'll know. Now, the definition of need can be a little bit of a gray area. So one might say, I need a 4-bedroom house because I have 3 kids, they each want their own bedroom, and my husband and I are in the primary bedroom. But some folks might say, well, you don't need a house that big. Your kids can share a room or whatever. But your need, as we're defining it in this setting, is just what you feel like is a basic necessity for you to function, for your family to be happy, for you not to want to just kill each other, okay? So that's how we're gonna define need. So the number of bedrooms. If you have an elderly parent living with you, do they need to have a bedroom on the first floor so they don't have to climb stairs if there's no elevator? Those are some basic needs that you have, right? Oh, I need to be in this school district, zoned to this school so my child doesn't have to change schools. And then you have wants. Now, I mentioned the equation where you have potentially other family members to consider, but if you're a single person, you have needs as well, right? It's not just, oh, I'm a single person, so I can just rent or buy a 1-bedroom condo. Maybe I want a 2nd bedroom as a workout room, okay? Especially during the pandemic, you don't want to go to a gym. Maybe I want a 2nd bedroom as a study or office because I don't want to have my desk in the bedroom 5 feet away from my bed where I'm tempted to take a nap in the middle of the afternoon. Or you don't want your desk to be just in the corner of the living room. Or maybe you're okay with that and you want to save money and you want to rent just a 1-bedroom or buy just a 1-bedroom. That's okay too. So those are your basic needs. And then on the wants column, there are different types of wants. One category of wants are things that can be changed once you move into the home. The other category are things you really cannot change, okay? Let me explain the difference. Things you can change are paint colors, types of countertops. Now, this is if you buy the home, you can change these things out. If you're renting, unless you get permission from the landlord, you can't change these things out, okay? So things that are colors, materials, kind of cosmetic, aesthetic things, you can change them, okay? You can even add in a pool if the backyard is big enough. That's something that you can change later. However, the other category of things that you cannot change are if your backyard's not big enough to install a pool later. So then you can't change that. You can't make your backyard any bigger unless you knock down part of your house or you invade the neighbor's backyard, neither of which is really a possibility. So think about those types of things, okay? Or if you want a curved staircase and the home has a straight staircase, pretty expensive and difficult to change after the fact because it's a structural element. So that's something that, unfortunately, if you wanted that, you probably needed to find a home with that in the first place, unless you're willing to compromise and not have the curved staircase and just go ahead and live with the straight staircase, right? Okay, so those are your needs and wants. And that way, when you find the home that you think just might be it, you can sit down and compare that home to your list of needs and wants. How many of these needs does it match? How many of these wants does it match? And where am I willing to compromise, okay? In order to get all my wants, maybe one of my needs isn't there. Maybe my kids cannot have their own bedroom, but are they and you going to be okay with that? Are you going to have to deal with fights because of the shared bedroom, right? Or do you want to go ahead and stick with the need side and give up a couple of wants? Because each property is not going to have everything you've ever dreamed of unless you have limitless money. And don't we all wish we could just do that, right? As I've been looking for homes for myself in the past and with my husband, I mean, it's not like we can just afford anything under the sun. We have to say no to certain things and say, well, it's too bad we can't have that, right? That's just the way it goes. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let me talk about conflicts with another person. So most people, if they're buying a home, if they're not buying on their own, by themselves as a single person, they're buying with a spouse or a significant other, okay? Whether it's a same sex or opposite sex, you can have conflicts, all sorts of conflicts. And even if you think that you have great chemistry and you get along great, when it comes to buying a home, sometimes you just butt heads because people have different preferences, different styles, and their own list of needs and wants. So how do you meld those needs and wants together and get to a resolution that everyone can be happy with? Because the last thing you want is to buy a home and you've been arguing and fighting and you're so upset with each other that you just have this miserable, bitter experience. when you're supposed to be moving into a home and being happy, but now you're just so upset because you've had to give up certain things, you don't like certain things, your spouse is angry with you, or whatever it might be. So let's try to avoid those and try to come up with as close to a perfect solution as possible. Okay, so first, I will say that for me and my spouse, it's been pretty easy. The homes that we've bought to live in, we have pretty similar tastes, and whenever there's something that's very specific that one of us feels more strongly about, the other one doesn't feel as strongly about. So we let the person who has the stronger opinion make the decision on that specific thing, okay? So for example, the home that we currently live in, on one of the floors, when the stair comes up, there is a landing area. The way that the floor plan was drawn by the builder, so our house was built, the landing was going to be a little bit more narrow. I didn't notice it. It wasn't something that I paid attention to. I didn't even think about it. I just thought, well, you're just going up the stairs and you're going to go down the hall and go to the bedrooms. Who cares about the landing? My husband, though, noticed, and he thought, this landing is a little narrow. It's going to feel more cramped. I'd like to redraw it and widen it. Boy, am I glad he did. I'm glad that he had that opinion. And I said, hey, I don't care either way. So since you feel strongly about it, why don't you run with that? And he did. And now we have a nice bigger landing where we can fit a table to put random things on that we need to transport between one floor to the other before we feel like making the trip up or down the stairs. And we can have a nice vase there. We put artwork on the wall, some pictures on the wall, and it's just a much bigger space and it feels better. And I'm so glad because he made that decision, and it altered the shape of the stairs and the position of it just slightly, and really was a negligible change in that direction, but it gave us a bigger landing space. But when there's a preference, for example, like I really like this particular tile, and he likes that tile too, but perhaps he's okay with these other two choices as well. Well, then he's like, well, why don't you go ahead and just make that final choice, because I'm okay with any of these final three choices, for example. Okay, so this is an ideal situation, but unfortunately, most people don't have such agreements. I have sat there as the real estate either buyer's agent or the seller's agent, watching the buyer's side if I'm representing the builder and the buyers are making selections for a new home, and they're just fighting and disputing, and literally you just are afraid that they're going to get a divorce before the whole thing is over, and that's just not fun. Of course, you could be buying a home with a parent, you could be buying a home with a sibling, or you could be doing it with a friend. You could be renting with any of these people. Renting, there's more of kind of a short-term feel, like you feel like, well, I'm going to be in here temporarily and then I'll move on, so maybe things are not as critical, whereas buying feels more permanent. Although some people rent for a long, long time, they'll rent in the same home for 10 plus years. So to them, things are more permanent, and so then things become more important. Okay, so how do you work through these disagreements? What I advise is a few key steps and a few tips. 1, decide what each person's needs and wants are. See where they overlap, where you have common ground. Agree on those first. That's a great starting point. So when you find a home that has the exact number of bedrooms that you're looking for, the extra study or whatever, then you have some sense of agreement and you can feel good and positive about that. Then look at the wants. Where do the wants overlap? Again, you want to add that positivity. Yes, we can agree on these things, okay? And then where the wants differ. Do they just differ slightly? Like maybe, like I said, there are some things where one person feels more strongly about, then let that person take that particular decision to make that choice. Or do they vary wildly? Perhaps one person loves modern architecture and everything contemporary, and the other person hates modern and contemporary design. They like traditional. That's going to be really hard because you're on polar opposite ends. Well, here's tip number 2. You can still find common ground because there is such design nowadays that kind of blends the old with the new. Bring in a little bit of antique and vintage with some of the modern, and you can have transitional styles, and you don't even have to have the same style throughout your whole home. So if you're buying a home, and let's say that you get a home that has hints of tradition to it, so it's not ultra contemporary, but there's still a more modern feel. Like let's say it's a stucco home and it's kind of Mediterranean, so it's a little bit modern, but it still has some tradition and it has that homey feel. Maybe that's a way you can compromise. Or inside, you can choose certain rooms to design and decorate in certain ways, okay? Out is the old idea of the whole house has to be this exact same style, right? We have to have the same color carpet in every room, same tile, same granite countertops, same paint colors, same hardware, like for the doorknobs and plumbing fixtures and lighting fixtures, same color, same design. No, you can actually mix and match, and you can get to something that everyone can be happy about. Let's take, for example, the kitchen, cabinet colors, right? Let's say I like dark cabinets and he likes light cabinets. Well, you can actually have both. You can have your upper cabinets be a light color and the lowers be dark, or the island have one and the rest of the cabinets have another, right? So there's ways to do that. You can have the powder bath, for example, be ultra vintage and that antique look if one person likes that. And then you can have the master bath be really modern and a spa-like feel. So you can actually incorporate different design styles and even architectural elements throughout the inside and outside of your home that can be different to appease multiple people with different tastes, okay? So that's the second thing. The third thing is sometimes you can literally assign a room for one person to design and decorate, period. And the other person literally has no say, okay? And vice versa. So if, let's say, for example, the kitchen is where person one really wants to be and spends a lot of their time, they're the ones doing the cooking. They want to have things arranged a certain way, a certain style that makes them feel happy. And the other person's okay with giving that up because the other person, person two, in return is going to get to decorate the theater, the media room, right? Because that is, they love movies and that's their room. So if you're willing to make that compromise and do a little bit of a trade-off situation that both people can be happy with, it's about give and take, not one person takes all, then that is a way to resolve that conflict as well, okay? If you guys have any other ideas, please let me know. I don't have the answer to everything. And certainly every home buying or renting situation and family and friend or whoever you're going in with, the dynamic is different. So if you have any tips or advice that I should be giving my clients, I would really appreciate hearing from you. Feel free to message me or comment as well, because everybody's got different ideas. And so I'm always open to hearing more. And in fact, some of these things, elements of them I've learned from other folks, right? Other designers and architects and other realtors. So I'm sharing it with you. Hopefully you've found this helpful, and I hope you will like and follow and come back and watch my Smarter Real Estate Weekly Wednesday video series. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye now.